Hi, I'm Tom Henriksen from the DevOps Online Summit. Welcome to our Media Promoter Spotlight. Today, we have with us Tom Kegley from SPaMCAST. Tom, introduce yourself to the people here at the DevOps Online Summit.
SPaMCAST, yeah. So 15 years ago, when the Software Process and Measurement Cast was born, right? That was cute. But the Software Process and Measurement Cast, I'm Tom Kegley. I obviously do all that agile coaching and work in the industry, but the cast really is all about, helping people understand what we do. And it's non-denominational, so some of it's agile, some of it's DevOps, some of it's DevSecOps. It's all of that in a nutshell and allows people to get ideas in front of other people so they can start conversations.
Yeah, Tom, I really appreciate all the different conversations. Like you mentioned, you cover a lot of ground. I mean, you have people on there talking about things. I'm trying to think, you had somebody maybe talking about security a little bit a while ago. And like you said, DevOps, agile stuff, you cover the gamut. So I appreciate it.
Well, realize this. Just if we think about what we do on a day-to-day basis, many of us interact with, a large swath of people. It's rare that I run into somebody who just sits in front of a laptop. Well, it's rare that I run into anybody, right, these days. But
yes.
But even when they tune their Zoom cam on, they're not just sitting there all day coding, and somebody doing a Vulkan mind meld to put it in. Yeah. They're interacting with other disciplines, other people. Mm-hmm. That's why I've taken this whole broader range.
Yeah.
And in some cases, as people strike out and decide to do something different, I've actually added a few more entrepreneurs into the mix that are predominantly software entrepreneurs, mm-hmm. but can help people start to think about, hey, if I don't want to be in the corporate, what are some of the ways I can strike out? And some of them are in recovery. Some of them are in DevSecOps. Some of them are in just flat security.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. The entrepreneurial area, it seems like, people will get into a specialty and then a lot of times will want to start a business or something like that. And that's something we all will try from time to time. And it's a fun endeavor. We can learn a lot, right?
Absolutely.
Excellent. So Tom, you mentioned SPaMCAST has been around for 15 years. What inspired you to get started on this podcast?
Tequila? No.
The truth comes out.
Yeah, well, it's probably fairly close. To be honest with you, I did radio back in college professionally, and I really enjoyed being in front of a microphone. But at the same time, when podcasts were really young, roughly 15 years ago, early in that podcasting, there wasn't anyone talking about how to build software, how to code, mm-hmm. how to do testing, all of those kind of things. So it's like, you know what? I can do that. And I enjoy doing that. And I had access early, one of the reasons I started out focusing on measurement and process is I had access to people like Watts Humphrey and Capers Jones. Wow. So it was really easy to send them an email. And back in the olden days, we still had email, and you could reach out to them and have a conversation. Having the podcast allowed me to give something back to them, get mm-hmm. them exposed to other people also. Yeah. And so that's how I got started. And that's why I got started. It was an easy way to give back mm-hmm. and learn at the same time. So, I do want to say that it wasn't all altruism, right? I get to learn. I fill up notebook after notebook as I was interviewed. I did an interview with Johanna Rothman on New Year's Day at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
And that's actually going to be the show that begins year 15, runs next weekend.
Cool.
Whatever next weekend is. I think it's like the 28th of January. Mm-hmm. So, but I ended up, I had to read the 3 books that she had just put out. So I learned from that. I also ended up with 5 pages of notes. And I always enjoy talking to Johanna.
Yeah.
I'm sure that somebody else will, and they may not end up writing down 5 pages of notes, but they're going to get a few pages of notes. And regardless of whether they go out and buy the books, which they actually should do, they're going to get and take something away. And that's the point of doing all this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so kind of comes to the core of why I do a lot of what I do, Tom, is that curiosity. You want to learn, you hear a term like you said, DevSecOps or DevOps, or, many of these other terms that get thrown around. I remember when first time I heard SRE, or I saw it I think I might've saw a book on somebody's desk that said SRE. I'm like, what is that? That was quite a few years ago, but it's like one of those things you get curious, you want to know. Obviously you can read, do research, but to interview people that actually do it, that's the best. Like you talked about Johanna Rothman. She's great. But yeah, that's just great to kind of have a conversation, isn't it?
Absolutely. And let's face it, I agree. You can go read the book and you read a lot of books. You have a bookshelf behind you. I have a bookshelf behind me. Yep. You consume all that stuff, but to be able to ask somebody a question and hear them explain it. And that's why I keep mine mostly interview based, right? So that I can ask the questions I want, questions that I get from other people. And so that it is about gathering and gaining information. And that's also why I ask how other people can keep in touch with these folks after the fact.
Yep. Yeah, that's good. I like how you do that too. Cause there's so many good people that you have on there. I think I've reached out to a few of them for things like the DevOps Online Summit, because I hear people that you talk to. I'm thinking, that would be a good interview. That might work in a setting. So,
Super.
I think that's the great thing about it.
Good.
So tell us this, how has it changed over the years for you as you've gone through this? What have you seen the changes?
Well, the equipment's changed a bit, right, over time.
Yes.
Started with a CAN headphone with a mic, and I recorded in hotel rooms a lot.
Yeah.
Haven't seen a hotel room in a while, but in terms of what's changed, access to people has changed. It's interesting, as for the past year and a half, as we went through this COVID stuff, actually access got a lot easier.
Yeah.
And well, being home at all the time and being able to reach out and then just schedule it was different. I started doing it every other week all the way at the beginning. I did that for first couple of years, every other week. And it's like, it just production work, just filled up the whole time. I decided I would run every week. So I've run now every week. I do a lot more interviews now. So that's changed over the years. The general tone has not changed. So we've steered people away from selling and keep it on content. The topic set has changed over the years. There was a lot more of things like the CMMI at the beginning.
Yeah.
More of a different practical approach to building things. Became significantly more agile in about year 3 or year 4, as that took off and as I got more well versed in it. Those sorts of things. But in general, there are a lot of the same people that funny. They're people that I've known who've listened to it for 15 years. I still am not sure about their sanity all the time, but they have, right? So they've been around. So the audience has grown a lot over time, but the kind of people that listen has not. It's roughly, it's a lot of practitioners and a few C-level kinds of execs, and I get those bounce in, bounce out. And it's just been a steady shift with the industry in terms of the topics, trying to keep it not exactly always cutting edge, but at least at the edge or close to the edge.
Yeah. Being topical is important. So I guess As you've done SPaMCAST, anything surprised you or jumped out at you over the years?
Well, there are a couple of things that have surprised me over the years. Um, the there are some people that are really good guests and are really good at this.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some people that you would just be amazed. They're top line kind of speakers who have to prepare all of their text and want to read it.
Yeah.
That's that at a personal level. That's always sort of surprising.
Yeah.
In terms of content and content ideas, I think there have been some gestalt moments. I had an interview. Feels like forever ago. I did it actually in a hotel room in Torrance, California. I interviewed a guy named Phil Armour, and we talked about multiple levels of budgeting, estimation. And to be honest with you, my idea for that interview was about 25 minutes long. I had 3 hours of content when I was done.
Oh, wow.
And the worst part was I actually had blown off a client meeting and didn't know it. It just went by. It was life-changing.
Yeah.
I fundamentally rewrote how I thought about the whole idea of estimation and budgeting and planning, and not in a negative way.
Yeah.
So that's been, there have been a couple of instances like that are just fundamentally life-changing. I think my first interview with Jim Benson was, when we were talking about Kanban and personal Kanban, was life-changing. Who was it? There have been a couple of others that have fundamentally rewritten how I think about Paul Gibbons. Paul Gibbons, multiple best-selling author of business books and about consulting, things like that. And very frankly, it was maybe the best conversation I've ever had. Again, changed how I practiced. So those were real surprises to me. I didn't expect that. Even after researching the source material going in, I didn't have any expectation that I would be a fundamentally different person after the fact.
Yeah.
There have been a few of those. That to me, I hear that occasionally from my listeners, but I am always amazed when the power of an idea can have so much effect on a human being. So that's what's been the most surprising to me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point about just some of the ideas you hear, even though you might have maybe read the book and done some preparation, when they talk about it, really bring it to life, or, it's one of those things where I remember there was a speaker I remember thinking, wow, they did a great job. And then reading their book. And I think the way they spoke and brought it to life was so much better than the material. Sometimes it depends on the context and the idea, but that's
and the passion they put it, right? So black and white words, black type on a white piece of paper. They can paint pictures in your mind, and I love reading and all that stuff. But hearing somebody speak with passion and especially if you're watching them as they do it, it can be mesmerizing.
Yep, exactly. So Tom, do you see any consistent themes that have shown up through the years?
No. And I always want to say yes, right? I always want to say yes, but the mix of people, I think, preclude that. I mean, could you pull out, standard topics, those sorts of things? Yeah. Requirements and the interaction between the business and the technical staff stinks and always has.
Yeah.
And despite the fact that we thought Agile would make it better, the way it's being implemented in many places hasn't. So that's a common thread. But is that a common theme that jumps out, or is that just a reflection of the world?
Yeah.
Probably not. the fact that the only real common thing is that everything is dynamic and it builds and it is marching forward.
Mm-hmm.
What we said, it's important to know what, let's say Jim Benson talked about with Kanban,
Yeah.
5 or 6 years ago. That's important. It's cool. But people are wrestling with it today, whether it's Jim or, Burroughs or Carl Scotland or somebody else like that. That's equally as important. And knowing both, you can say, okay, here's a trajectory. Those kind of things. I think that's cool. But they're really central knowledge, central thing that is always going to be invaluable. Nah, I don't think there are any of that in our industry.
Yes. So Tom, appreciate your time. Any closing thoughts?
There's this DevOps online thingy coming up. I hear that that's really good. So, I'd like everyone to come out and listen to the podcast. www.spamcast.net, number of other places, iTunes, pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
But better yet, after you've listened to a few of those, make sure that you get involved. Submit perhaps a paper to the DevOps.
Call for speakers.
Or if you're not going to do that, then at least go.
Yeah, exactly. Tom, thanks so much for coming on.
Pleasure.
On behalf of Tom Kegley, I am Tom Hendrickson for the DevOps Online Summit.